John.
Yes.
Appreciate you being here with us today.
Glad to be.
Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
John Stoudemayer, scion of the Dutch Fork, though I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Greenville. And this place is my ancestral church home. My father grew up going to church in this building, which was used until 1954.
Yeah.
And my aunt and uncle, who were married across the street in the new church, that was the first official church service in that building.
Really?
Yeah.
So you got some roots here.
I got some roots here. Both of my parents, my aunt, my uncle, my grandparents, and other family members are buried here in the church graveyard.
So you attended St. John's as a child, I guess?
As a child, we would come down several times a year, and we would go to church on Sunday. We came down every year for years for homecoming, which is in October.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I never could figure out how the service worked. I would sit next to my aunt, 9, 10, 11 years old, and saying, how does she know to turn to this page?
Funny you mentioned that. They still have some of the old black common service books back here. Which leads me to say, one of the reasons we ask you to join us today is because of your connection with this church. And you and I are a couple old Southern white boys.
I am.
Yeah, I am too. And the topic we're dealing with, how we use and misuse Scripture, and how the 2009 statement that passed the ELCA Churchwide Assembly about the ordination of gay and lesbian affected us. It was divisive, shall we say.
Yes, still is.
Still is. You have told me and others that yours was, and these are my words, and you can change them if you wish. You came along on this. So take a few minutes and tell us exactly where you are now and where you were.
I'm a son of the South. You know, I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. Did all my pre-seminary education in Greenville County. Went to Greenville County schools, and then went to Furman University, and then eventually went to seminary down in Columbia. Like most kids growing up in the 50s, in 60s, we were taught a natural aversion to gay people and gay practice. And I just sort of absorbed that. When I came to Mount Tabor Lutheran Church in Little Mountain in 1999, sometime after that, and I do not know how long it was or anything like that, I was in my office one afternoon and I got a phone call and I answered it, and it was from somebody I did not know, and I did not know his name. He didn't offer it and I didn't ask it, but he was a gay fella. And he had been down in Columbia to the gay community in some kind of stuff with promiscuous sex, and wanted to talk to me about that. And so I talked to him, and I tried as best I could. I will not say I succeeded, but I tried to hear what he was telling me and to give him the best sort of advice or comment that I could give him from a pastoral perspective. What I didn't do was say, oh, you terrible person, because it was clear.
Yeah.
It was very clear that he was in pretty much deep emotional turmoil over this. He was on the one hand compelled, and on the other hand chagrined, I guess you would say.
This was not a choice, is what you're telling me.
It was not a choice for him. I talked with him off and on for several years.
Yeah.
And then eventually he quit calling. I never knew his name. I tried to be pastoral, to encourage him, to let him know that he was one of God's children. We always closed with a prayer. And but that put me on the road to reconsidering what I thought about gay people. Then came the 2009 decision. So there were some, truthfully, if I'd been a member at that assembly, I would have probably voted against doing this. My first reaction when they did it was, why couldn't they wait till I retired?
You sound much like me.
For several months following that decision, I would lay in bed awake at night, tossing it around in my mind, and quite literally through sheer exhaustion at about 2 o'clock at night, I would finally fall asleep. And I did that way for months. And at the end of that time, what finally gave me peace is that I finally decided for me that as much as I might not have understood it or wished that they hadn't done it, that we had made the right decision, as difficult as that decision was. And I'm sure it was difficult for a lot of people to make that decision positively, as well as some people to make it negatively.
John, in the opening video that we did for this segment, I commented that the reason we were doing this was that we were confronted after we had done several, and someone said, when are you going to deal with the gay marriage and ordination of homosexuals? Because that is the real issue that started some of the division and, let's face it, anger, whatever you want to call it. That's why we're doing this. It sure isn't to make people happy. What do you think God is trying to say to the church as we wrestle with this issue?
I guess the first thing I want to say is that with that decision in 2009, for the first time in the history of the church, we're speaking to the gay community in the same way that we speak to the non-gay community about sexual behavior. That we expect responsible sexual behavior, and that committed relationships is the format in which we should express our sexuality. I am not particularly worried or offended by gay people getting married. Now, 20 years ago, maybe, but not now. I'm okay with it. My wife has a first cousin who is gay and has been with her partner since they were in college. I think they are now legally married, because once that became a possibility. And she is not a threat to the nation in any way. She has led an exemplary life. She went to college and then went and taught at Gallaudet for her whole career, and
there you go.
That's to be admired. She grew up in a missionary family,
right?
And she and her partner were for many years de-churched, and that's not
Explain
right.
what you're saying when you say de-churched. Just
in other words, the church said, "Thank you very much, but don't come anymore."
In other words, all are welcome except.
Yeah. I am not particularly worried, personally, if some congregation somewhere decides that they're going to call a pastor who's gay, which we have been doing forever, But when I was ordained, you could be ordained as a Lutheran pastor and gay as long as you took a vow of celibacy. The difference is now is we're going to treat you like
everybody else.
Like everybody else.
Yeah.
Like that. And if the congregation says, well, we like this guy and we're fine with him being married to this other guy and we want him to be our pastor, I don't have any problems with that.
That's fine.
I don't know. This is what I don't know. And I'm not particularly worried about not knowing it, is how often that happens in the ELCA. I'm sure it does happen. I don't know how often it happens. Like I said, I know the brother of one of my good friends from seminary is a gay pastor, and he's married, and he's somewhere in the New York Synod, I think. Yeah. And seems to be doing well and is well liked by his congregation. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough.
They're happy, we're happy.
Yeah. I do say this, is that there seems to be a lot of concern that gay pastors are going to be forced on congregations, and I think this comes about because people have not read either their church constitution or the Synod constitution or the national constitution. They haven't picked up the phone and had a conversation with their pastor or with the bishop because the congregation decides who's going to be a pastor.
Exactly.
You know, when I went to seminary, I wasn't guaranteed to be a pastor until the church called me to be a pastor. Then I was ordained. I wasn't ordained and then sent out to a church.
Yeah, it doesn't, and I think sometimes churches, Lutheran churches, ELCA churches, get confused with the way other denominations work.
That may well be true.
And I think that can cause a problem. I don't think our bishop or any other bishop in the ELCA has a file cabinet full of gay pastors and here, let's send this. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody one time, and I can't remember the person in all the conversation, but I just said, look, I said, the bishop, regardless of who the bishop is, I've been here long enough to be under more than one bishop.
Yeah, I understand.
Doesn't purposefully send candidates to congregations where they know it's not going to work.
That's right.
I said, the job of the bishop is to find for a pastor and a congregation something that's going to fit and work to the benefit of both. So bishops don't send people out willy-nilly to churches that they know are not going to get a call.
Yeah.
Or that if they do get a call, that it will be a disaster for both the pastor and the congregation.
Yeah, I don't think they intentionally set out to stuff a square peg into a round hole.
No.
They just don't. Any final thoughts on this subject?
I actually believe that a couple of generations from now, people are going to look back at this time and think to themselves, what was all the fuss about?
You got it there, brother. I think you're exactly right.